Hi guys, I messed up on the video for the second part, so I'm going to explain it right now, okay? So the first part was to complete the table, and we just went cell by cell. The second part, part 2, says, is there an association between being a woman and playing strings? Complete the explanation, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So it says, the relative frequency of being a woman who plays strings is, and then the relative frequency of being a woman in the orchestra is what percent, then the relative frequency of plays a string is greater than or less than the relative frequency of being a woman in the orchestra. And is there an association between them or not? So now the first part right here, it says the relative frequency of being a woman who plays the strings is. So right here, when I look at the table and I look at women and I look at the strings, and there's 78 out of 103. So to get the percentage, 78 out of 103, I go to the calculator. Let me see my calculator, my Smarter Balance. 78, I had already put it, sorry. 78 out of 103. As a decimal is 0.75728, sorry. Now as a percent, I need to change it to a percent. So I multiply it by 100. So I multiply that times 100 because I want to find the percent. So that's going to be 75 and 7 tenths because this is a 2, so it stays at 75 and 7 tenths. Rounded to the nearest tenth. The next one is a 2, so it stays at 75.2. So that is why right here I put 75.2. Now it says the relative frequency of being a woman in the orchestra. So I look at the women and I look at the total. The orchestra includes everybody, the strings, the bass, the woodwinds, and the percussion. So the women, there's 119 out of 182. So I go back to my calculator, 119 out of 182. So I put in here 119 out of 182. Now remember, once again, this is the fraction. If I want the percent, I multiply it by 100. So that gives me 62 and 3 tenths, but the next number is an 8. So that means I round up the 3. So it's going to be 65 and 4 tenths, 65.4. So let me go check over here. What did I put? 65.4, yes. And so now the relative frequency, these two, well, this one is greater than the woman in the orchestra. So I put the relative frequency of being a woman in the orchestra and who plays the strings is greater than this other relative frequency. So therefore, there is an association between them. Okay, and that is the correct answer. Thank you so much for asking.